Okay, so I'm here on the western edge of Wichita, Kansas. Just checked in with Bill. He's doing all right. He's just working out in the garage today, tinkering around with something. He's been checking on Little Peeps, the little chicken. She's doing okay, which is awesome. But his other eggs are not hatching, so I think we're going to end up buying a couple extra little chicks to go in with her so she's not just so lonely. Because chickens like being in a flock. They don't like being solo. But he said she's been hanging out he put a mirror in there so she could see another chicken, so she could see herself, but so she wouldn't feel lonely. So he said she's been hanging out over by the mirror where she can see the other chicken. So, yeah, poor little thing. She's only 2 days old. I mean, I never really thought about chickens, baby chickens, what they do, how they do, but evidently they just either figure it all out or they don't do well and they die. So, because mama chicken it's not like a mammal where, the mama chicken feeds it or whatever, or even like other types of birds. Chickens don't eat stuff and then regurgitate it up for their chicks like other types of birds might. It's just either they start pecking and eating or they don't, and they start drinking or they don't. So she's eating and apparently drinking because she's eating. He hasn't witnessed her drinking yet, but he started her off giving her a little bit in the eyedropper just to make sure that she wasn't dehydrating. But evidently she's doing okay. But we're going to have to get some more chicks. And this is kind of weird to me because now Peeps, her mama, is probably Little Hen. He thinks that was Little Hen's egg. And of course her daddy's Jack, and Jack's our rooster. So, when she grows up, if he breeds her, it's going to be like pure incest. I don't know if it matters that much in the chicken world. I don't know. Do not know. And if she's a he, then we've got a whole different problem because we're going to have to figure out something to do with him. I don't want to eat him. I mean, I don't think Bill would actually eat a chicken that he actually, incubated and hand watered and all that. I don't think he's going to eat him. He said he would, but I don't think he will. I'm not believing it. So if he turns out to be a rooster, either we'll have to have 2 runs with 2 roosters, or we'll have to give him away or something, or get rid of Jack. Bill put it this way: we'll either have to eat the little one or eat Jack. So I don't want to eat Jack either. I like Jack. He's a good rooster. He takes care of the girls. He protects them. So I'm not going to reward him for that by putting him in a stew pot. I don't think that's very fair. Of course, nobody ever said life was fair for humans or chickens, but still, I think I'll not allow that to go on, probably. Not that Bill would actually do that. He's messing with me. Bill, 100 years ago, it would have definitely been a thing, We would have not even thought twice about it. He would have been raised to be eaten, so we would have just put him out with the other chickens and fed him up and then butchered him. But I don't really want to do that. I don't want to be butchering chickens. Not my cup of tea. If everything goes to shit and we can't buy meat or whatever, then that's different. Then they're fair game, and we'll raise them for meat. But for now, we don't have to do that. So I'm glad we don't have to do that. It's one of Bill's projects that he's been working on. He must have been mulling this over for months, because he just went out and got some solar panels on sale at Harbor Freight, and he got several of them so that he can rig us up where if our power goes out for any reason, whether we have an ice storm or the end of the world comes along and whatever. That's kind of cool. I wish I'd had the camera pointed that way. These people had cutouts of panthers and Bigfoots and all that in their yard. So it was kind of interesting. But anyway, he had this idea that no matter what happens, if we can just keep the freezers and the refrigerator plugged in and the well, then we can get along pretty well, even if all the other stuff goes to hell in a handcart. You know, if we can just power those things with solar power. So he's in the process of slowly putting together a solar power system for those things. We've got 2 freezers and a refrigerator freezer that he's going to hook into it. And I was kind of like, well, why don't you figure out one for the well, so if power goes out we can still draw water and we won't have to put a pump on there. He's like, yeah, let's do that. So that's what he's been working on, and I think that's a great idea. Whether or not we ever have to have it, I'd rather have it and not need it than to need it and not have it, because we've got meat in the freezers. You know, obviously, groceries. Stuff's not getting any cheaper, so, you know. And we're getting ready to buy another half beef here whenever it's ready. Another month or so, I think, it'll be ready. And the place we've been getting these beefs from, the guy that raises them does a really good job. It's really good meat. Really tender, good, you know, just well done meat. So we don't want that going bad, obviously. You spend that much money on half beef, you know, that's a pretty big chunk of money to protect. So yeah, the components for him to do this are pretty cheap right now, so he got to thinking about it, and that's what he's doing. So I'm really glad he's thinking ahead and doing that, because I've got this feeling that at some point things are going to go to shit. The way things are going right now, I would not be surprised if they cut us off the electricity, except for a certain number of hours a day or whatever. None of that would surprise me with the people that are in charge of stuff right now, because they're, you know, extremists. And this is the kind of stuff they think about doing, rolling blackouts, things like that. Well, that's okay for air conditioning, I guess, and stuff like that. You can find a way to survive that. But if your freezer is down for too long, your refrigerator's down for too long, and you lose your food supply, then you're in trouble. So, yeah. So I'm glad he's thinking about it. The only situation in which this would not probably help is if we had a Carrington event and it fried out our solar panels too, because it probably would. It would probably fry those out and burn out the batteries or whatever. I'm not sure what all an EMP will take out. I don't know if it's got to do with the wire actually being torn up, you know, burned, or what components are actually damaged by that, but it would, you know, I'm sure that would probably be something that would be taken out by that. But if we had the parts, we might be able to repair it, you know, make it work. I don't know. I don't freaking know. I guess the other option is to build a Faraday cage big enough to put that stuff in and store it in the event of a Carrington event type thing, or an EMP or a nuclear, you know, deal, and then have them ready to put into service when it was over with. So I don't know. But and I know obviously people can live without refrigeration, but life was a lot harder before refrigeration, because, you know, you have to preserve your foods. That means you have to spend a lot of time doing things to preserve it. Canning, drying, you know, whatever. Takes equipment, takes time, takes the know-how. And it takes fuel to be able to do all that. So, you know, if you've got an electric stove, you're kind of screwed if you don't have electricity. I mean, we've got a propane stove, but it's got an electric oven. So, you know, if in the event of something like that, if it was going to burn everything out, it would burn out the oven too, and it might burn out the electronic controls on the gas part. So we might be reduced to where we're having to strike a match to light the burner. You know, that kind of deal. Which that was the kind of gas stoves I grew up around. It wasn't that big of a deal. Everybody had a box of matches on the wall beside the stove, and you'd reach up and get a match and strike it, light your burner, blow out the match and put it in the little match container in the same holder. So it had like a area for the matchbox to slide into, so you could reach into it and get your matches. And then at the bottom was kind of like a little cup for your burnt matches to go into. So, I mean, so that's not that big of a deal to me. But, I mean, I don't want to see that happen, but at the same time, I'm poised on the edge of wishing something would happen to bring sanity back to the world. You know what I mean? It's like, my God, how far do we have to go down this freaking trail toward destruction before somebody actually puts freaking brakes on and stops us and says, that's enough, we're not going there? You know, how much farther do we have to go? How close do we have to get to destroying ourselves? You know, I don't know the answer to that. We haven't gotten there yet. We haven't hit that limit yet. So, I don't know. Alright, we just turned on to Highway 96. We're just jockeying around back here on the backside of Wichita, Kansas. We're on the northwest side now. And we're going up here to pick up another county road that'll take us up to the next highway. And this is so much better than going through Wichita. I mean, unless you're in a big ass hurry. If you're in a hurry, forget about it. This takes time. All this jockeying around takes time to do. But hour and a half, 96 miles. So just a little over an hour and a half away from where I'm stopping for the night. So this is working out great. It's 4 o'clock, 4:15. Oh, don't do that. Don't do that. Try and wipe dust off my display on the truck and try to dial Bill's number. Leave him alone. Now, I'm not sure what kind of trailer this is going to be, except I think it'll either be a stock trailer or a 2-horse bumper pull. I'm hoping it's a gooseneck stock. We'll find out. Find out at 7 in the morning, by golly. By golly, by gosh. I'm getting like 18, 19 miles to the gallon. This is the craziest thing ever. As soon as it went to 200,000 miles, it's like it flipped a switch. You know, Bill was saying something, it sounded like it might be something programmed into it, and it does, it feels that way, but I don't know what it would be. You know, why would it do that? I have no idea. Would they like put something in reserve until you hit that mile marker? Until you hit that mile post? It doesn't make any sense. Pretty crazy, but it's true. I mean, it's right in front of me. It's undeniable. Undeniable. Now the question is this going to translate to better fuel mileage from here on out with it? I hope so. It would be nice if it did. It would be very nice. Those are some kind of funky looking cars, like mud runners or something. I have no idea what that was, but it must be some kind of local car thing. For fun, I presume. Okay, some kind of a big creek or river here. I don't know what this big water line is over here on the side of the road. Clearly something to do with the water system, but what, I do not know. This is one of those places I need to get my foot out of the accelerator a little bit. Speed limit is telling me here is 55, and I keep wanting to go faster, but I need to pay attention and have some self-control here. Still on the far northwest corner of Wichita, Kansas. And we're on North 151st Street West. Another irrigation system. So I'm seeing quilt squares on barns around here. And I think I've talked about this before, but I don't know if it ever made it off the cutting room floor. But back in 2015 or 16, might have been 16, my sister and I went out to Kentucky doing some genealogical stuff. And we kind of drove around out there looking in eastern Kentucky, and we noticed that these barns had giant quilting squares on them. And it was like a touristy thing for that area. Well, evidently that's a big popular thing now. It's caught on and it's spread. So I've seen it in Oklahoma, I've seen it in Kansas, I've seen it in Colorado even now, and Iowa, different places. So this is something that's catching on. People like the idea of it, and it is really a cool thing. It's neat. They paint these quilting squares onto a board, you know, a couple feet square or whatever, however big. And then they hang it up on the side of the barn. It just looks neat. It's just really kind of cool. So I had never seen it before we went out there and saw that in Kentucky, but now then here it is, what, 8 years later, and it's spread this far, so it's really caught on. Kind of neat. I don't know what little town this is, but Gentilly maybe? Yeah, Gentilly, Kansas. Or Bentley, not Gentilly, Bentley. I was only seeing part of the sign there. I thought that was a G, not a B. This is Bentley, Kansas. Duh. Little bitty town. Bentley Primary School. Bentley. I was actually looking at the water tower when I thought it was a G. I thought the B was a G, but there was kind of a tree in the way. Okay, so now I'm seeing the stone fence posts. There were some back there on that driveway. If you back up, you can see them real well. They are fence posts literally hacked out of stone, cut out in long slabs, and stuck down in the ground to serve as fence posts. Well, those are real popular in this part of Kansas, and I think it's called the Flint Hills, maybe. But at one time, evidently, that was actually a viable material for fence posts. And you'll still see thousands of stone fence posts all over Kansas, from here clear on up to I-70 and even farther. It's kind of a neat deal. You know, Kansas isn't just a big flat plate. It's actually kind of a neat place. It's got its own different areas with its own different kind of hallmarks, or, you know, specialties, or whatever, however you want to say it. So it's 48 degrees up here this afternoon, and it's 4:25, so that's probably about as warm as it's going to get. It's supposed to be a little warmer tomorrow, which is good, but it'll probably still be nippy in the morning. But actually, I'd rather go pick up stuff in the morning when it's cooler, as opposed to picking up stuff in the heat in Texas in the middle of August. So I'm not going to complain even if it is cold in the morning. I'm just going to enjoy it. Enjoy it while it lasts, because another month or two it's going to be hot. It's going to be hot from North Kansas all the way to the Gulf, and everywhere south and east of here, and lots of other places too. So I'm not going to complain about, you know, cool mornings. No, not anymore. I've done enough winter complaining, I think, already this year. I've complained 2 or 3 times about winter. And we didn't really have that much of a winter, so, you know. So evidently Tuck was laying down with Molly on her bed today, which is really good, because he's been sticking to me like glue since we brought him home. But with me going out and working, he needs to be able to integrate with everybody else in the house, and Molly hasn't been all that welcoming to him. I think she's kind of bent out of shape that we brought him home, because she's used to being the top dog since Pepper's been gone. And Pepper was our Chihuahua, and he actually ran the place. Pepper did. He was a little tyrant, but I miss that mean little dog. He was mean. All 6 pounds of him. Terrifying. And I really miss him. But Molly's not really like a alpha female. She's pretty happy-go-lucky, mellow girl. And I don't know if Tuck's going to turn out to be an alpha male or not, but anyway, if they'll get to be friends, she'll have somebody who'll have her back when she goes out to piddle in the mornings and stuff, instead of just being one dog out there. She walks outside and there's coyotes in the yard. You know, if there's more than one dog, they'll leave her alone. But they have been known to go after solitary dogs. It would be worse if it was wolves, actually, because wolves will go after packs of dogs. They don't care. Wolves are kind of crazy. They're like, I don't know, wild, vicious dog packs on steroids. I mean, if you think about it, that's kind of what they are. The original crazy dog packs. So, but coyotes are a little bit more circumspect. They're cowardly. Coyotes are really, well, I don't know if cowardly is the right word. They're very cautious. Evidently, they're pretty much aware that you know, they're already disliked, and you know, the ones around us, they get hunted and they get shot, things like that. So they're already aware that they're not exactly, you know, welcome visitors. So when they come in to steal something or to kill something, they usually try and just grab it and run with it. You know, they'll make one big charge and try and grab you, and if they don't get you and you don't turn around and run right back into them, then chances are they'll go on their way. But if there were 2 or 3 of them running together and Molly was out in the yard by herself, they might come up and mess with her. But less likely with 2 dogs out there. You know, they'll both have a better chance of dealing with something like that if each of them has a buddy. So, you know, if all that makes sense. This is kind of a shitty road. It's got expansion joints like every 100 feet. And they're rough. Looks like they filled them in, but they're not. They didn't really fill them in. They're trying, but, you know, there's only so much you can do once those expansion joints start moving around, popping up, getting all uneven. Okay, so we're getting up to another little town here. This is Halstead, Kansas. Mind their speed limit here. Okay, we're going to cross Highway 50 right here. Highway 50 will take you right over west to Dodge City and into eventually into Lamar, Colorado. So we're getting up here, making some progress, getting northward in Kansas here. And we've got a pretty good tailwind now. I'm getting 19.1 miles to the gallon. All this is bad because, I mean, it's good today, but it's going to be bad tomorrow because I'm going to be hauling a trailer going the other way and I'll have a headwind. But, you know, it all evens out. I say that. And it does even out. Well, that's a cool house. That's reminiscent of a house we lived in when I was a kid. Slow way down on these railroad tracks. I don't trust any of them anymore. Do not. They're just rougher than hell. Evidently, the railroads are not coming in and checking their crossings and keeping them even. They're supposed to come in and do that, maintain them, keep them relatively smooth, but they're falling down on the job, I think. So there's a river with a considerable amount of water in it. No sign saying what it is. Nope, no sign. What's that say? Oh, that's a speed limit. I like this country out in here. This is nice. I can see Highway 50 up there. 50 is a pretty good trucking route, and it runs over to I-35, I think, is where it pretty much ends. But that's to the east, which is not very far over. But to the west, it runs clear across Colorado. You take it over through Dodge City, Garden City, and then into Holly and Lamar, Colorado, and then over into La Junta and Pueblo. And then you can take it clear on up over the mountains into Gunnison, Montrose, and into Grand Junction. So that's Highway 50. So I'm on a level north to south with Grand Junction, Colorado right now, basically. More or less, pretty much. That's how far north I've come. I'm going to go ahead and just cross 50. This is 50 right here. I'm going to cross it and keep going, because I don't need to run over to I-35. I've got no interest in I-35. What I'll be doing is up here a ways, I'll be crossing under 135, or yeah, I-135, and cutting across at an angle up to Abilene, which is up northeast of me a little bit. So this is actually a really nice way to go. This is a very low stress way to go. I want you to see this house out here. I'm on this hill. That's cool. That's really neat. Looks like it needs a paint job. It may be vacant. I don't know, there's vehicles out there. That's a cool looking old house. So I think basically what I'm going to start doing is trying to pace myself better and take some of the excess hurry up out of this job. You know, something seems like it's too tight where it's going to be super stressful. I might just start turning those down. It's kind of the way that one Friday was. I mean, I wanted a second job really badly. And it would have been a good one if I could have gotten it, if the trailer hadn't been so heavy. But also, you know, I could have just said, you know, coming from a customizer, I think it's going to be too heavy for me, so I'm going to pass on that one. Well, that's what's going to be my future answer on those, I think. If I ever get offered another one. I doubt that he'll offer me any more of those, because he knows how I feel about customizers. But I'm doing everything I can to keep working, but minimize the stress of working. And, you know, I think I've got the absolute right to do that too, because I'm running my own company, for one thing. I'm paying all the bills. I pay the money to move these loads. And what I get back from them is a reimbursement, basically. It's a settlement. It's what they call it, a settlement check. And it's a reimbursement for all the money and the time I spend moving this stuff. So I've gotten to be pretty good about the economics of it, but I need to learn to also manage the stress factors of it. And I'm getting better at that. I've cut out my two biggest stressors. Those are gone. My two biggest stressors were pulling doubles and hauling big stacks and big trailers. So by limiting the amount of weight that I put on this truck by registering it for a lighter weight, and by not doing any more doubles, I've gotten rid of most of the stress, most of it. Now I've got a debate in my mind. I think what I'm going to have to do, I think I'm going to have to go ahead and put apportion tags back on this truck. Me and Bill were talking about it today when he called, because this might be a situation where I need to be running this truck for the long distance jobs and running the Ford for the close distance jobs. And if I'm going to do that, then I'm going to need the apportion tags back on this truck, because I'll be taking this into different states where I'm going to otherwise have to stop and pay permits. And I need to make sure that it's all up to snuff in every other way. So I'll have to do a couple things to it. Right now I've been using it as a replacement, as a kind of a loaner, really. I've been loaning it to SMB while the Fords broke down, but I think I'm going to lease it back on, because I had it leased. I don't lease it anymore. It's been a loaner. But I'm thinking, since this is going to be a permanent thing, I'm going to go ahead and lease it back and then redo all the stuff on it and go ahead and get that the apportion tags back on it. Which is kind of sad, because I just put an Oklahoma tag on the front of it that says Oklahoma. It's not a license plate, it's an Oklahoma vanity tag that I put on the front of here. If I go back to an apportion tag on this, I'm going to have to take that off and put the apportion tag on the front. So, it's one of those deals. Or I can leave it. I can leave the tagging as it is, actually. I don't have to run an apportion tag on here. So I guess what I'll do is wait and see, because I don't know, I'm torn. Can you tell? I'm torn. On the one hand, if I have the apportion tag, I don't have to stop and pay any extra permits at any state lines. On the other hand, the only states that I've had to do that in are Arizona and New Mexico. And I don't go that way very often now, because I'm not pulling doubles. That's primarily what I was hauling going to those states. So if I'm not going to those states, then there's really no reason for me to change the license plate or the registration on it, because it's perfectly legal to run it this way. So I think I'm going to go ahead and leave it for now, because it's kind of it's a monetary commitment to doing that. Now, if I need to do it, I can do it. But for now, it's probably it's 6 of one, half a dozen of the other, unless I'm going into a state where I have to pay an extra permit fee. So, and I apologize for thinking out loud here, but this kind of helps me think these things through, thinking about them out loud. And so I can kind of make a better decision about it when I think it through like this. So this is actually kind of helping me. But when you're running commercially, doing trailer hauling like we're doing, there are 2 ways you can register your vehicle. You can register it for 26,000 pounds and under, and just put a Oklahoma commercial tag on it, which is how this truck is tagged right now. Or you can put an apportion tag on it and then set whatever weight limit you want to put on it, which is the way the Ford is tagged right now. Even though the Ford is tagged for less weight, it's tagged for 24,000, I think. So I'm not even required to have an apportion tag on that truck. But in the event that I have to go someplace like that, I'll have it prepaid, so I don't have to. So maybe I'll leave it as is, and just, if I need to go into a place where I know I got to stop and pay extra permits, I'll just take the Ford. The only problem with that is those places are farther away. So I was thinking, for just the sake of, convenience in the event of a breakdown with the Ford, if I'm going farther away than 1 day, maybe I should take this truck. If I'm staying within 1 day of home, then I can drive the Ford. Which, Bill thought that was a pretty good idea. So that might be what I do too, and just leave it tagged as it is. But I've got a couple other things I need to do, even though it's tagged like that, before I get it completely back in service. I mean, right now it's a loaner, so I've got a little bit of leeway, but to put it fully back in service, I've got to do a couple things to it. So I'm going to have to do that. One of the things is put permanent door stickers on it. I've got magnetic stickers on it right now, and I don't like them because they have a tendency to blow off, and they're not real, I don't know, they just don't look as professional. So I'll probably go ahead and order some door decals and go ahead and re-decal the doors, so I don't have to worry about the stupid stickers, And if I want to cover them up for some reason. If I want to run it locally and don't want it showing, I can always get a plane magnet and put over it. But I mean, that's kind of silly. I don't know why a person would do that. So I'm going to stop this right here.